Welcome back, everyone. Last time we saw how Saul was determined to destroy all the early believers in Jesus. We could really feel his rage as his journey unfolded. He's just left the summit of the Mount of Olives, 2,500 feet above sea level, and he's descended to the bottom of the Great Rift Valley, the lowest place on earth. So that's way below sea level. That's a drop in altitude of over 3,900 feet. No wonder the temperature's boiling, and so is Saul's fury. Let's see where he's got to now. He's arrived at Jericho, the city of palm trees, set in its lush oasis with the Judean wilderness all around. But, oh no, it was from here that Jesus had set out for Jerusalem on his fateful visit. They'd turned against him pretty quickly when he'd invited himself to the home of the most hated man in town, Jericho's chief tax collector, Zacchaeus, the man who worked for the hated Romans and had defrauded just about everyone in town. Well, didn't that just go to show what rogues these followers of Jesus were? Just like their master. Risen from the dead, had he? Well, if that tomb was empty, his followers must have spirited away his corpse somewhere. No wonder they were still at it. But not for very much longer. He, Saul, was personally going to put an end to this matter, once and for all. Where next? Yes, Beit Abara, the crossing point on the Jordan. It's here that great crowds had flocked to hear the great preacher from the wilderness who'd caused such a stir. John the Baptizer, they'd called him. Thousands had flocked to hear him. The chief priests had even had to send out messengers to ask him who he thought he was. Are you the Messiah, they'd asked? No, he'd answered, but someone's coming after me who's far greater than I. I'm here to prepare the way for the Lord. So in those days, Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. And when he came up out of the water, immediately he saw the heavens opened and the Spirit descending on him like a dove. And a voice came from heaven, "Thou art my beloved Son. With thee I am well pleased." And so this was where he'd actually baptized this Jesus. Here today, where the Jordan used to flow, steps from the earliest churches lead down to this never-to-be-forgotten site. The very first church on these pillars actually spanned the river itself. So this is a site where the ministry of Jesus began. There was just no getting round it. There was no escaping this Jesus. Every mile of Saul's journey was rooted in memories of him. Almost as if Jesus was dogging his steps, you might say. Up north now towards Galilee, and there's its glorious lake. But, oh dear, the whole life of Jesus had revolved around this lake, hadn't it? He had called his first disciples on its shores, and great crowds had flocked to hear him on its surrounding hills. Which route around the lake did Saul take? We're not told. If he went west, he'd have passed Tabgha, where even today its church commemorates how Jesus fed the 5,000 with just 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Its famous mosaic is a small, simple but eloquent testimony to the miracle which took place. If Saul had taken the eastern shore, he'd have heard how a great crowd of 4,000 had spent 3 days there with Jesus in these hills, enthralled by his teaching. He had fed them with just 7 loaves and a few fish. A few miles further on, they'd all have been telling him of how this Jesus had driven evil spirits out of a man. He'd sent them into a herd of pigs who had all rushed over the cliffs and drowned in the lake. Jesus didn't seem so popular there. In fact, they'd told him to go away. If only he could shake these memories of Jesus from him. He's nearly at the top of the lake now. Peace at last. But, oh no, it's Capernaum. the home of that man Peter. Why, Jesus had made this fishing town the centre of his Galilean ministry for nearly 3 whole years. Just about everything had happened here. The stories were endless. It's here in Peter's house that Jesus had claimed to have the authority to forgive sins, something only God could do. Sheer blasphemy. No wonder he had had to be crucified. That wretched Jairus, the very ruler of the synagogue. The whole town was emphatic that Jesus had raised his daughter from the dead. Saul couldn't have got out of the town quick enough. The memories of Jesus would be suffocating him. So off he sets, leaving Capernaum and the lakeside far behind and heading north towards the city of Caesarea Philippi on the very foothills of Mount Hermon. Beneath these towering cliffs, the melted snows of Mount Hermon flow out of the rock as a complete river, one of the sources of the River Jordan. This unusual natural phenomenon had caused this place to be a centre of pagan religion from earliest times. And it was here that Jesus had come with his disciples. And at this very site, where men had worshipped their heathen deities, Jesus had asked them, "Who do you say I am?" Peter's reply was destined to ring down through the ages. "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Saul would have shuddered at such a reply. But today's visitors, in remembering this event, find the reply of Jesus to Simon Peter very telling. "Blessed are you, Simon, for this was not revealed to you by man, but by my Father in heaven." So here, at one of the sources of the River Jordan, Simon Peter had been granted a revelation as to the true identity of Jesus. But would a similar revelation ever be granted to Saul? He was about to set off on this, the final stage of his journey to Damascus. Little did he know it, but it was about to change his life and world history forever. Well, next time we'll see just what momentous surprises would be in store. So I'll certainly hope you'll want to be with me. I'll see you then.